Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Lynn and today I will be sharing part 1 of drafting a French hood, and then keep an eye out later for another video where I will take today's patterns and create my first French hood. But before we get started, please make sure to select thumbs up that you like the video. If you have any questions or comments, please post them below. And please click subscribe to be updated when new videos come out. Now, as you can see on this page, I have French in quotation marks. The reason why I have French in quotation marks is that modernly we know this type of hood to be known as a French hood. However, if you study anything from the Tudor period, you will find that in the 16th century, this hood could be known as a French hood. It was worn by Flemish, English. It was worn by other people, not just the French. In fact, they really didn't refer to this as a French hood. It was simply a hood. For the purposes of today's video, I will simply be referring to this hood as a French hood. Now on this first page, you will see on the left-hand side is a picture that says yes, and then there is a picture in the middle that says no. And that is because the French hood was not just one item in and of itself, it was actually multi-layered. And so if you look at the picture on the left, you can actually see the multiple layers of what makes a French hood a French hood. And then the picture of me is of a French hood that my husband bought for me as a gift a couple of years ago, but it is all one piece. So to help give you some idea of what a French hood looked like, on the far left-hand side is a painting from about 1492, and this is Anne of Brittany. And if you look, the hood is very long. The front part almost goes down to her shoulders. If you look on the far right, this painting is from 1520, and as you can see, the front part of her hood is further up on the neck, almost to her chin line. And then if you look at the picture in the middle, you can see where the hood has become even shorter right below the earlobe. As I mentioned before, some historians and historical reenactors refer to the French hood as one solid hood. It is the French hood. However, upon closer inspection of portraits and sculptures, it makes sense that these hoods were multi-layered. This style of hood evolved over time from the medieval Liripipe hood, which I will show you examples of that in just a moment. These layers typically had an undercap, known as a coif, a second cap, which was referred to as a bonnet, and the hood, which may or may not have decoration attached to it, such as paste or billement. And here are two examples of what a medieval Liripipe hood looked like for ladies. First things first, you would want to have your hair braided and then taped, and this would go on the back of your head. Here are two examples of that. If you would like to know more about 16th century hair taping, I do have a video and I will include a link to that below. The first layer of what makes a French hood is the coif. A white linen coif holds the hair in place and protects the outer fabrics of the hood from the oils on the hair. Here are two examples of a hood. On the left is a drawing of Mary Tudor from about 1514, and then on the right is an English coif from about the late 16th century, which is at the Met Museum. Most portraits show just simply a plain white coif. However, in the later 16th century, you will find coifs with black work on them. Looking around online at the various patterns that are available for coifs, this pattern is the one that seems to most represent what I have seen in various portraits from the 16th century. And with that, I have made measurements of my head and what I think this pattern should look like. So the 18 inches and the 11 inches, the 10 inches, I've written that on this pattern, and I will be testing it out in my next video to see if that sizing actually works. Please note that with this coif pattern, the seam is on the top of the head. Personally, I think having the seam on top of the head compared to on the back of the head is personal preference. Based on historical portraits I have seen, it looks like there is no seam on top of the head, which means that the seam is on the back of the head. Trim on the coif was not required, but it was common. Gold was a very common color found in portraits. However, you might also find the frill to be white, and this has a crimped look to it. The white seems to be more common with the bonnet, which is the next layer, and the gold seems to be more common with being on the coif. And onto the bonnet. As you remember, the coif was the white linen layer that sat on the hair, and then the bonnet sat on the coif. This cap was usually made of a rich fabric such as velvet or silk. It was typically black, but could also be red or white. Black symbolized power and authority, as well as humility. Red symbolized martyrs and humility. And during the Tudor era, only those who are royalty, nobility, or members of the council could wear crimson produced by the expensive dyes. Lower classes could wear a not nearly as vibrant red produced by red madder root dye. And white symbolized purity and virtue. Only the wealthy wore this pristine white because it was expensive and difficult to produce. This cap sometimes was adorned with beads or embroidery, especially near the edge. And chin straps were optional. I think this usually depended on where the hood sat on the head. Here are some historic references that describe a bonnet. In 1533, a sumptuary law stated that any man whose wife wears any French hood or bonnet of velvet with any habiliment, paste, or edge of gold, pearl, or stone keep at least one horse of particular quality. And then there is a sermon from Hugh Latimer in 1550. And then there is also a contemporary who described what Lady Jane Grey was wearing in November of 1553. From my research, it appears that the bonnet is of a similar, if not identical, shape as the coif. And so for this project, I am simply going to make the bonnet the same shape as my coif. And finally, onto the outer hood. Here are a few examples of what an outer hood looked like. On the far left is a funerary monument. In the middle is a painting of Anne of Brittany. And then on the right is the sculpture of Diane de Poitiers at her tomb. In the late 1400s and into the early 1500s, the veil on the back appears to have been semicircular. However, as you progress into the 1510s, the 1520s, and the 1530s, the back veil definitely seems to be more rectangular. The veil was typically black, and it was usually made of a rich fabric such as velvet, silk, or taffeta. The underlying fabric could match the dress somewhere, such as the underlining of the sleeves, and the edge was sometimes decorated with gold embroidery. On the next 2 pages, I will show you different patterns that I found online for doing the outer hood. The sizing of this outer layer can vary depending on the particular decade that is being created. About 1500, the front part of the hood extended past the chin almost to the shoulders. However, by 1520, the front of the hood was shortened to just underneath the earlobe, leaving the neck exposed. However, the length of the veil on the back continued to be long about mid-back, as this could be flipped over the head and pinned to the top of the hood to create a bonne grace. And here are 2 more patterns for the outer hood, and I believe I'm going to follow the pattern on the far right, but I'm going to use the measurements that I had on the previous page as my basis for this pattern. And here is my works cited page. Please keep an eye out for my upcoming video where I will be making my first French hood with multiple layers. If you have any questions or comments, please post them below. Please remember to select thumbs up that you like the video. And please click subscribe and ring that bell to be updated when new videos come out. Thank you for watching.